The sound of my brother's laughter echoed through our parents' living room as my business cards scattered across the hardwood floor. Seriously, Elizabeth? Strategic innovation consultant? Stop pretending to be something you're not. I watched James, my older brother by 2 years, grind his expensive leather shoe into one of my cards, smearing the embossed lettering I'd paid extra for. At 32, he was the epitome of what our family considered success. Newly hired executive at Meridian Technologies, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Seattle. Those cards cost money, James, I said quietly, bending to pick up the scattered remains of my professional identity. Money you can't afford to waste, he smirked, adjusting his Rolex, a gift from our parents for landing his new job. Face it, little sister, consulting is just a fancy word for unemployed. Our mother walked in, carrying a tray of appetizers for James's celebration dinner. Elizabeth, dear, are you still doing that freelance thing? You know your father could make a call, get you something more stable. I straightened up, tucking the salvaged cards into my jacket pocket. The jacket was Armani, though they'd never know it wasn't from last season's clearance rack. In their eyes, I was still the family disappointment, the one who'd walked away from a real career to start my own business. I'm doing fine, Mom, I replied, thinking of the meeting I'd just come from. The one where I'd signed the final papers to acquire Meridian Technologies through my holding company, Aurora Ventures. Fine isn't the same as successful, James interjected, dropping into our father's leather armchair. While you're consulting, I'll be transforming Meridian. They're lucky to have me, you know. The CEO practically begged me to join. I suppressed a smile, knowing that the CEO had already been quietly informed of the upcoming management changes. James had no idea that his dream job was about to change dramatically. When does your position start? I asked, already knowing the answer. Monday, he grinned, pulling out his own business cards. Thick, glossy things with Executive Vice President emblazoned in gold. Unlike some people, I have a real title at a real company. Our father strode in, beaming with pride. Son, I just got off the phone with George at the country club. Everyone's talking about your new position. Finally, a Harrison making headlines in the business world. I thought about the headlines that would run next week when Aurora Ventures revealed its ownership of Meridian. The mysterious holding company had been the talk of Seattle's business community, known for aggressive acquisitions and innovative management strategies. No one knew that behind the corporate shield was the youngest Harrison, quietly building an empire while her family mocked her career choices. Elizabeth was just showing us her business cards, James said, making air quotes around the word business. Dad glanced at the crumpled card on the floor. Consulting? So, honey, it's been 3 years. Maybe it's time to admit this entrepreneurship phase isn't working out. 3 years. While they thought I was scraping by on freelance work, I'd turned my grandmother's inheritance, a modest $1 million they thought I'd waste, into a holding company worth over $300 million. Aurora Ventures now owns stakes in dozen companies across the tech sector, each acquisition made carefully and anonymously. Actually, I said, picking up my bag, I have some meetings tomorrow. Big changes coming up. Changes? Mom perked up. Are you finally considering real jobs? Something like that. I smiled, thinking of the email I'd received during dinner. The one confirming that Aurora Ventures now owns 67% of Meridian Technologies shares. Well, don't expect any introductions from me at Meridian, James called as I headed for the door. We have standards. I paused, turning back. Don't worry, James. I have a feeling we'll be seeing a lot of each other very soon. In my car, a deliberately modest Audi that wouldn't raise questions, I checked my messages. My assistant had confirmed everything was in place for Monday's announcement. The board would meet at 9 a.m. to formally approve the acquisition, followed by a company-wide meeting where Meridian's new owner would be introduced. The same meeting where James would discover that his little sister wasn't just successful, she was his boss. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Honey, James left some of his business contacts here. Should I save them for you? Might be helpful. I started my car, thinking about the stack of NDAs sitting on my desk at Aurora Ventures. The ones that every Meridian executive, including their newest EVP, would need to sign on Monday. No thanks, Mom, I typed back. I have all the contacts I need. The weekend crawled by in a parade of family messages celebrating James's success. Mom sent hourly updates about his new office furniture. Dad forwarded articles about Meridian Technology's promising future. Even our cousins chimed in with congratulations about finally having someone important in the family. I read each message from my penthouse office, watching Seattle's Sunday morning fog roll between skyscrapers. The Aurora Ventures logo glowed softly on the wall behind my desk, a rising sun breaking through clouds. Appropriate given what tomorrow would bring. Miss Harrison? My assistant Kate's voice came through the intercom. Final confirmation from the board members. All 17 have signed the confidentiality agreements about tomorrow's announcement. Only the CEO knows your identity. I smiled, remembering my meeting with Gerald Porter, Meridian CEO, last week. His shock at discovering that the mysterious head of Aurora Ventures was the sister of his newest executive hire had been priceless. And James's orientation schedule? Starts at 8 a.m. with HR paperwork. The company-wide meeting is set for 10 a.m. in the main auditorium. We've arranged for him to sit in the front row. Perfect. Let him have his moment of glory before everything changed. My phone buzzed, another family group text. This time from James. Last chance for career advice, sis. My business cards may be expensive, but at least they're not getting thrown away faced with tears of joy. I was composing a reply when Kate rushed in, tablet in hand. Your brother just posted on LinkedIn about transforming Meridian's future. The comments. Well, you should see for yourself. The post was exactly what I expected. James in his best suit, standing in front of Meridian's logo, promising revolutionary changes under his leadership. Our father had already commented, "That's my boy. Show them how a Harrison does business." If only they knew. Kate, make sure the photographer is ready tomorrow. I want to capture the exact moment James realizes who owns Meridian. Already arranged. Though. She hesitated, your parents might also be there. James mentioned they want to see his new office. Even better. Let them all witness the moment their assumptions about success crumbled. I spent the rest of Sunday reviewing the changes I planned for Meridian. The company had potential, but it was stuck in outdated thinking. Exactly why I'd targeted it for acquisition. Under Aurora Ventures, we'd modernize their technology, streamline operations, and most importantly, eliminate the old boys club mentality that had stifled innovation. My phone kept buzzing. Mom, James's office has a view of the Space Needle. When will you get an office with a view? Dad, son's already scheduling meetings with major clients. That's real business. James, should I save you a janitor's closet at Meridian? Perfect for consulting, winking face. I left them all unread, focusing instead on tomorrow's presentation. The one where I'd outline my vision for Meridian's future. A future that wouldn't include an executive vice president position for my brother. At midnight, one final text came through. From our grandmother, the only family member who knew the truth. Give them hell tomorrow, sweetheart. Success is the best revenge, but making them watch is even better. I slept soundly that night, dreaming of boardrooms and shattered coffee mugs. Monday morning arrived clear and bright. I dressed carefully in a custom-made suit that cost more than James's monthly salary. The same suit I'd worn to sign the acquisition papers, though this time I added grandmother's diamond pendant. A reminder of where this all started. Miss Harrison? Kate called from my private elevator. Your brother just arrived at Meridian. He's already making changes. Oh. He's fired 2 senior managers and demanded his office be repainted. Says the current color scheme doesn't reflect his vision. I checked my watch. 8:15 a.m. How long until he finishes the HR paperwork? About an hour. Though he's insisting they expedite it so he can start making real changes immediately. Perfect timing. Let him dig the hole a little deeper. At 9:30 I stepped into my private car. Not the Audi I drove to family functions, but the Bentley I reserved for business matters. As we pulled up to Meridian's headquarters, I spotted my parents walking through the main entrance, dressed like they were attending a coronation. My phone buzzed one last time. James, corner office is looking great. Don't worry, I'll wave when I see you cleaning windows, face blowing. I typed back my first response of the day, looking forward to our meeting at 10. Don't be late. His reply came instantly. Sorry sis, executive meetings only. Maybe next time. I stepped out of the Bentley, straightening my jacket. The security guards snapped to attention. They'd been briefed about the real owner of their company. The receptionist jumped up. "Welcome, Ms. Harrison. The board is ready whenever you are. Time to show my family what real success looks like." At precisely 9:55 a.m. I stood backstage in Meridian's main auditorium, listening to the excited chatter of 500 employees. Through the curtain, I could see James in the front row, holding court with our parents, his new assistant already running back and forth with coffee and schedule updates. "Everyone's in position," Kate whispered, handing me the latest report. "The board members are seated, the press is ready, and..." She smiled. "Your brother just sent a company-wide email announcing his vision for transformative leadership." I glanced at my phone where James's email was displayed. "As your new executive vice president, I promise to revolutionize Meridian Technologies. Change starts today." He had no idea how right he was. Gerald Porter, Meridian's CEO, approached with an apologetic look. "Ms. Harrison, your brother has already demanded the resignation of 3 more managers. He's threatening to restructure entire departments." "Don't worry, Gerald," I assured him. "The restructuring will happen, just not the way he imagines." At 10 a.m. sharp, Gerald took the stage. The auditorium fell silent except for James's loud whisper to our parents. "Watch this. Porter's probably going to announce my first major initiative." "Good morning, Meridian Technologies," Gerald began. "As you know, our company has undergone significant changes recently. Today, I'm honored to introduce someone who will lead us into the future. The owner of Aurora Ventures and our new majority shareholder." I watched James lean forward, probably expecting some wealthy businessman to appear. "Please welcome our new owner and CEO, Elizabeth Harrison." The silence as I walked on stage was absolute. In the front row, James's coffee mug slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. Our mother's hand flew to her throat. Dad's face went from red to white in seconds. "Thank you, Gerald." I took my place at the podium. "For those who don't know me, I'm the founder and CEO of Aurora Ventures. As of last week, we own 67% of Meridian Technologies." The audience erupted in whispers. Phones appeared everywhere, capturing the moment. In the front row, James seemed to have forgotten how to breathe. "Some of you may have received an email this morning about transformative leadership," I continued, enjoying the way James sank lower in his seat. "That transformation begins now, though perhaps not in the way some expected." I clicked to the first slide of my presentation, showing Aurora Ventures' portfolio of successful tech companies. Under our leadership, Meridian will modernize its infrastructure, expand its market presence, and most importantly, I paused, meeting James's shocked stare, eliminate outdated management structures that prioritize titles over talent. Our father stood up, his voice shaking. "Tao, see here." "Security," I said calmly, "please escort any non-employees from the auditorium. We're discussing confidential company matters." As security approached, James jumped up. "You can't do this. I'm executive vice president." Actually, I clicked to the next slide, displaying the organizational chart. "That position has been eliminated in our restructuring. Though I hear the IT department needs a junior analyst. You did take that coding course in college, right? But my office, my business cards." James stammered. "Will need to be cleared out by noon," I finished. "Company policy on terminated positions. Though unlike you, I won't throw the cards away. They might make an interesting historical exhibit someday." Our mother was crying now, mascara running. "Elizabeth, how could you do this to your brother?" "The same way you all did it to me," I replied, my voice carrying through the silent auditorium. "By assuming success only looks one way. By dismissing anyone who doesn't fit your narrow definition of achievement." The next hour was a blur of announcements, strategic plans, and corporate vision. I outlined Aurora Ventures' strategy for Meridian, introduced key initiatives, and answered questions from increasingly excited employees. All while my family sat frozen in the front row, watching their assumptions about success crumble in real time. After the presentation, I found them waiting outside my new office. The corner office James had been redecorating. "This is humiliating," James hissed. "I've already told people about my position." "Consider it a lesson in due diligence," I replied, admiring the view of Seattle. "Always know who owns the company before you start firing people." Our father stepped forward, switching to his negotiating voice. Princess, surely we can discuss this. Family should help family. Like you helped me? I turned to face them. By mocking my business? Throwing away my cards? Treating me like a failure because I chose a different path? We were trying to protect you, Mom pleaded. No, you were trying to control me. To force me into your version of success. I sat down behind my desk, my grandmother's pendant catching the morning light. But real success doesn't need anyone's permission. James made one last attempt. The country club. My reputation. You have to give me another chance. Actually, I don't. I opened my laptop. But since you're so interested in consulting now, here's my card. I slid one of my Aurora Ventures business cards across the desk. Though you might want to handle it carefully, they're quite expensive. Security arrived to escort them out. As they left, I heard James asking Dad if his old position at the family friends firm was still available. Over the next few weeks, Meridian transformed. Innovation flourished without the old hierarchy. Employee morale soared. The stock price jumped 30% on news of Aurora Ventures' leadership. My family's reactions varied. Mom sent daily emotional appeals about family loyalty. Dad alternated between threats and attempts at reconciliation. James posted vague LinkedIn updates about exploring new opportunities, while quietly interviewing for entry-level positions. 1 month after the announcement, I received an invitation to speak at my old business school's graduation ceremony. The topic? Redefining success, breaking away from traditional paradigms. I accepted, planning to use my family's crumpled business cards as visual aids. The morning of the speech, a final text arrived from my grandmother. Saw Meridian's latest stock price. Well done, sweetheart. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right in ways they can't ignore. Looking out over Seattle from my office, the office James had so briefly claimed, I thought about success in its many definitions. About business cards thrown away and empires built in silence. About brothers who thought job titles meant power and sisters who knew true power comes from owning the company. On my desk, beside acquisition reports and strategic plans, sat a single framed photo. My grandmother on the day she gave me my inheritance, both of us smiling like we shared a secret. Which of course we did. The secret wasn't just about money or success. It was about patience, vision, and the sweet satisfaction of watching those who underestimated you realize just how wrong they were.
You're pathetic, Emma. Always have been, always will be, Marcus sneered as he signed the last document, officially transferring our father's entire fortune to his name. I watched him from across the mahogany desk in Dad's study, my face carefully neutral despite the storm raging inside me. My name is Emma Chen, and I'm watching my brother steal my inheritance right in front of my eyes. Not that he sees it as stealing. In his mind, he's always deserved everything. The golden child, the successful son, the one who could do no wrong in our father's eyes. At least that's what he thought. Just sign here, the lawyer said, sliding the paper toward me. His expression was uncomfortable, probably wondering why I wasn't fighting harder. Why I was letting my brother take everything our father had built over 40 years. I picked up the pen, its weight feeling strangely light considering what it represented. You're sure about this, Emma? The lawyer asked one last time. Once you sign, the entire estate goes to Marcus. The house, the accounts, the business, everything. Marcus rolled his eyes. She's sure. Aren't you, little sister? It's not like you ever contributed anything anyway. All those years playing around with your art while I helped Dad run the company. This is just making things right. I thought about the last conversation I had with Dad just 3 days before he passed. How he called me to his hospital room when Marcus wasn't there. How he pressed a small key into my palm. His eyes cleared despite the medication. The safe in my study, he'd whispered. Not the one Marcus knows about. There's another behind the painting of the lighthouse. Wait until the time is right, Emma. You'll know when. I hadn't opened it yet. Somehow, I knew Dad wanted me to wait for this exact moment. You're right, Marcus, I said, signing my name with a steady hand. Take it all. The money, the house, the company, you deserve it. He didn't even try to hide his triumphant smile as the lawyer gathered the papers. I could see him mentally calculating his newfound wealth. Over $50 million in liquid assets, the family estate worth another 15. And Chen Industries, valued at well over $200 million. "I want you out of the house by tomorrow," he said, standing up and straightening his designer suit. "Since I'm feeling generous, I'll give you until noon." I nodded, already heading for the door. But I paused at the doorway, unable to resist one last comment. "Congratulations, Marcus. I hope it makes you happy." He was already on his phone, probably calling his golf buddies to brag about his victory. He didn't even look up as I left. That night, I waited until the house was quiet. Marcus had gone out to celebrate, probably drinking champagne that cost more than most people's monthly salary. The staff had all gone home, leaving me alone in the massive estate that had been my home for 28 years. I made my way to Dad's study, my footsteps silent on the thick carpet. The painting of the lighthouse had hung there for as long as I could remember. A simple scene of waves crashing against rocky shores, the lighthouse beam cutting through a stormy sky. I'd always loved it, spending hours as a child making up stories about the lighthouse keeper and the ships he guided to safety. Now, I carefully lifted it off the wall, revealing a small wall safe I'd never known existed. My hands shook slightly as I inserted the key Dad had given me. It turned smoothly, and the safe door swung open with a soft click. Inside was a single envelope, thick with documents and a USB drive. On the envelope, in Dad's precise handwriting, was written, "For Emma, when the time is right." I took them both, closed the safe, and rehung the painting. In my room, I opened my laptop and plugged in the USB drive. What I saw made my breath catch. Files, hundreds of them. Financial records, emails, photographs, all documenting years of Marcus's secret dealings, embezzlement, tax fraud, illegal contracts with shell companies. My perfect brother had been stealing from our father for years, hiding his tracks, but never realizing Dad had known all along. But that wasn't all. I opened the envelope next, my hands trembling as I read through document after document. Dad hadn't just known about Marcus's crimes, he'd planned for this exact moment. He created a second company, completely separate from Chen Industries, built through careful investments and hidden acquisitions. A company worth even more than the one Marcus had just stolen. And he'd left it all to me. I sat back in my chair, letting out a long breath. All those years Marcus had spent mocking my art career, belittling my choices, thinking I was the family failure. Dad had been watching, learning who his children really were, and he made his true choice long before he died. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Don't forget, out by noon tomorrow. And don't try taking anything valuable. I'll know." I smiled at the screen, thinking about the safe's contents tucked safely in my bag. "Don't worry," I typed back. "I'm taking exactly what Dad wanted me to have." Let Marcus have his victory for now. Let him think he'd won everything. In just a few weeks, when the quarterly reports came due and the auditors started asking questions, he'd learn the truth. About his crimes. About Dad's real legacy. About the sister he'd always underestimated. I packed a small bag, just clothes, some photos, and my laptop. The rest didn't matter. Tomorrow, Marcus would wake up thinking he owned everything. He didn't know that Dad's real fortune, the one he'd built in secret, was already being transferred to accounts only I could access. I took one last look around my childhood bedroom, remembering all the times Marcus had made me feel small, worthless, less than him. Dad had seen it all, and in the end he'd made sure justice would be served. "Goodbye, Marcus," I whispered to the quiet house. "Enjoy it while you can." The next morning, I walked out of the family estate without looking back. Marcus had already left for his company, probably eager to start throwing his weight around as the new CEO. He hadn't even bothered to watch me leave. I was already forgotten, just another loose end tied up in his perfect victory. I checked into a modest hotel downtown, not the kind of place Marcus would ever deign to enter. It felt strange being there with just one suitcase after a lifetime of luxury. But I didn't mind. Everything I needed was on my laptop and in the documents from Dad's safe. My phone kept buzzing with messages from family friends and business associates, all of them shocked by my decision to give up my inheritance. I ignored most of them, but one call I had to take. "Emma Chen," a crisp voice said when I answered. "This is Diana Walsh from Cooper & Walsh. Your father arranged for me to contact you exactly 1 week after the estate transfer." I sat up straighter. Dad's secret company had been established through Cooper & Walsh, one of the most prestigious law firms in the country. Yes, Ms. Walsh. I've been expecting your call. Your father left very specific instructions, she continued. The new company, Phoenix Enterprises, is now fully under your control. However, he also left a letter that I'm supposed to read to you before we proceed. Are you somewhere private? I moved to the small desk by the window, pulling out a notebook. I am now. Deanna cleared her throat and began reading. My dearest Emma, if Deanna is reading this to you, then everything has happened exactly as I predicted. Your brother's greed has finally won out, and he's taken what he thinks is everything. I know you're probably hurt, confused, and angry, but I need you to understand why I let this happen. I felt tears prick at my eyes hearing Dad's words. Even now, after everything, he was still teaching me. I built Chin Industries from nothing, Diana continued reading. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what mattered. I spoiled Marcus, gave him everything he wanted, never taught him the value of hard work or integrity. By the time I realized my mistake, it was too late. He was already stealing from the company, thinking I didn't know. My hand tightened around the phone as Diana read on. But you, Emma, you were different. While Marcus demanded everything, you asked for nothing. When he took credit for others' work, you quietly excelled on your own merit. Your art, which he mocked so cruelly, showed me that you understood something he never will. True value isn't in money, but in what you create. Phoenix Enterprises is more than just a company, Dad's letter continued. It's everything I should have built from the start. Clean investments, ethical practices, partnerships with artists and creators. The kind of business that makes the world better, not just richer. And you, my daughter, are the only one I trust to run it. Deanna paused, letting the words sink in. There's more, she said. Your father included detailed instructions about what to do when Marcus's crimes come to light. Would you like me to continue? I wiped away tears I hadn't realized were falling. Yes, I said firmly. Tell me everything. For the next hour, Diana laid out Dad's plan. It was brilliant in its simplicity. Marcus's theft from Chen Industries had been carefully documented over years. When the quarterly audit came due in 3 weeks, everything would be exposed. The company would face investigation, and Marcus would face criminal charges. But Dad had prepared for that too. Phoenix Enterprises was positioned to step in and save Chen Industries from collapse, protecting the employees' jobs and the company's legacy. And I would be the one to do it. Your father wanted you to have time to prepare, Diana explained. To set up your new office, meet key partners. Understand the full scope of Phoenix before everything becomes public. Are you ready for that? I looked out the hotel window at the city skyline, thinking about Marcus sitting in Dad's old office, believing he'd won it all. More than ready, I replied. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of meetings and preparations. Diana introduced me to Phoenix's executive team, all handpicked by Dad for their integrity and vision. I toured the company's main office, a modern building across town from Chen Industries, filled with art galleries and creative spaces alongside traditional offices. Everything about Phoenix was different from Chen Industries, where the old company was all mahogany and tradition. Phoenix was innovation and light. Dad had built it specifically for me, understanding my vision in a way I never knew he did. Marcus called once during those weeks, probably drunk and feeling magnanimous. Hey, little sister, he slurred into my voicemail. Hope you're not living on the streets. Maybe if you apologize nicely, I'll give you a small allowance. Can't have you embarrassing the family name, right? I saved the message. It would be interesting to play it back to him later, when everything changed. The day before the quarterly audit, I sat in my new office at Phoenix, looking through the final pieces of evidence. The scope of Marcus's crimes was staggering. Millions siphoned through fake contracts, bribes paid to cover his tracks. Years of systematic theft from our father's company. Deanna walked in, carrying more documents. The auditors have everything they need, she said. By this time tomorrow, your brother's perfect world is going to implode. Are you sure you want to be there when it happens? I thought about all the times Marcus had belittled me, mocked my choices, treated me like I was nothing. Oh yes, I said, standing up and smoothing my dress. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I picked up my phone and dialed Marcus's number. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding irritated at the interruption. What do you want, Emma? Just wanted to let you know I'll be stopping by Chen Industries tomorrow, I said casually, around 2 p.m., when the auditors are there. There was a pause, then a laugh that didn't quite hide his nervousness. Why? Coming to beg for your inheritance back? A bit late for that, don't you think? No, Marcus. I'm coming to take back what's mine. And this time, I'm doing it the right way. I hung up before he could respond, imagining him sitting there in Dad's office, starting to sweat as he wondered what I knew. Tomorrow would change everything, and for once, I was ready to step into the spotlight. Dad had taught me one final lesson. Sometimes justice takes patience, and the sweetest victories are the ones you earn through integrity, not greed. I arrived at Chen Industries at exactly 2 p.m. the next day. The lobby was buzzing with unusual activity, men and women in suits moving purposefully through security, carrying briefcases and laptops. The audit team had arrived. Marcus was waiting for me by the elevators, trying to look casual, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. "What's this about, Emma?" he asked as I approached, keeping his voice low. "What are you playing at?" I smiled, the same calm smile he'd given me when he took everything. "Let's talk in your office," I said, emphasizing the word your. We wouldn't want to make a scene. The ride up to the top floor was silent. Marcus kept checking his phone, probably getting messages about the auditors already finding irregularities. By the time we reached Dad's old office, now stripped of all his personal touches, Marcus was visibly sweating. "All right," he snapped, closing the door behind us. "What do you want? Money? Is that it? Name your price and let's end whatever game you're playing." I walked to the large windows overlooking the city, remembering all the times I'd stood here with Dad. "It's interesting," I said, not turning around. "All those years you spent stealing from this company, did you ever wonder if Dad knew?" The silence behind me was deafening. When I turned, Marcus's face had gone pale. "What did you say?" he whispered. I pulled out my phone and played a video security footage from this very office, showing Marcus accessing financial records late at night, making transfers to hidden accounts. He knew everything, Marcus. Every theft, every bribe, every lie. He documented all of it. Marcus lunged for the phone, but I stepped back, keeping it out of reach. "That's just a copy," I said calmly. "The originals are already with the audit team, along with years of evidence Dad collected. Should be reaching their desks right about." My phone buzzed with a text from Diana. Right on cue. "Now." Marcus collapsed into Dad's chair, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. "You're lying," he said, but his voice shook. "Dad would never." "Dad gave me a choice." I cut in. "I could have exposed you right after he died. But he knew, and I agreed, that letting you take everything first, letting your greed show its true colors, was the better path." A commotion outside the office drew our attention. Through the glass walls, we could see security escorting several auditors toward us, followed by 2 police officers. "Mr. Chen," one of the auditors called through the door. "We need to speak with you immediately regarding some serious discrepancies." Marcus's face twisted with rage. He stood up, knocking over a stack of papers. "You planned this," he snarled at me. "You're destroying everything I built." "No, Marcus, you destroyed it yourself. Every time you stole from Dad, every time you chose greed over integrity. I'm just here to clean up the mess." The door opened and the group entered. One of the officers stepped forward, already reaching for his handcuffs. "Marcus Chen, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and tax evasion." As they read him his rights, Marcus kept staring at me, disbelief warring with fury on his face. "You're nothing," he spat. "You'll run this company into the ground. You're just an artist playing at business." I smiled, thinking about Phoenix Enterprises waiting in the wings. Actually, about that, I nodded to Diana, who had appeared in the doorway. She stepped forward, laying a thick folder on the desk. "Phoenix Enterprises," she announced to the room, "has submitted a bid to acquire Chen Industries' assets, protecting the jobs of all employees and ensuring the company's survival through this transition." Marcus's eyes widened as understanding finally dawned. "Phoenix? That's not possible. I've never even heard of them." "That's because Dad built it in secret," I said softly. "Built it for me, while you were too busy stealing from him to notice. And now, dear brother, I'm going to take everything you thought you'd won and turn it into something better." As the officers led him away, I sat down in Dad's chair, no, my chair now, and looked at the city sprawling below. The next few months would be challenging, merging the two companies, rebuilding trust with employees and clients. But I was ready. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Diana. Your father would be proud. I thought about the painting of the lighthouse, still hanging in the study at home. Dad had always said it reminded him that even in the darkest storms, there was someone watching, guiding ships to safety. Now I understood. He had been my lighthouse all along, quietly showing me the way while letting me find my own path through the storm. Marcus had chosen greed, believing that money was power. But Dad had taught me the real secret to success: integrity, patience, and the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it means playing the long game. The news of Marcus's arrest and my takeover of both companies spread quickly through the business world. Some called it justice, others called it revenge. But I knew the truth. It was simply the final lesson from a father who had wanted his children to understand the true meaning of legacy. 1 year later, I stood on the stage at the annual Business Awards, accepting the award for Most Innovative Company of the Year. Phoenix Chen Industries, as it was now known, had become a model of ethical business practices, supporting artists and creators while maintaining profitable growth. Marcus watched it all from his prison cell, serving a 10-year sentence for his crimes. He still sent occasional letters, alternating between threats and pleas for help. I kept them all in a folder marked Lessons Learned. The lighthouse painting now hangs in my office at Phoenix Chen Industries. Every time I look at it, I remember Dad's words from that day in the hospital. Wait until the time is right, Emma. You'll know when. He was right. I did know. And now, looking out at the empire I built from the ashes of Marcus's greed, I knew something else too. Sometimes the best revenge isn't taking everything from someone who wronged you. It's showing them that they never took anything from you at all. Because in the end, what Dad left me wasn't just the company or money or even justice. He left me the greatest gift of all. The knowledge that I was strong enough to weather any storm, and wise enough to be my own lighthouse when the waters got rough. The cafe was packed when Sarah walked in, her left hand prominently displayed so everyone could see the ring. My grandmother's ring. She slid into the seat across from me, a smirk playing on her perfectly painted lips. Thanks for meeting me, Emma, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I wanted you to be the first to know. Michael and I are getting married. My stomach churned at the mention of my ex-husband's name, but I kept my expression neutral. Sarah had always been like this, taking everything that was mine, from childhood toys to prom dates. But this time she'd gone too far. Congratulations, I said, wrapping my hands around my coffee cup to stop them from shaking. I see you're wearing Grandmother Rose's ring. She held up her hand, letting the antique diamond catch the light. Oh, this old thing. Well, since Michael helped me contest the will, technically it's mine now, along with the house and the trust fund. Her smile widened. It's funny how things work out, isn't it? I thought about the last conversation I'd had with Grandmother Rose, just days before she passed. We'd been in her study, surrounded by her beloved books and antiques, when she'd handed me an old leather journal. Keep this safe, she'd whispered, her voice weak but urgent. Everything you need to know is in here. Promise me to wait until the right moment. I promised, tucking the journal away without reading it. Now, watching Sarah flock her stolen inheritance, I wondered if this was the moment Grandmother had been waiting for. You know what's really funny? Sarah continued, stirring her latte with obvious pleasure. How easy it was to convince the lawyers that you were mentally unstable. A few tearful statements from Michael about your episodes during your marriage, some carefully edited photos. She shrugged. The judge practically handed everything over. My hands tightened around my cup. The episodes Sarah mentioned were panic attacks I had after discovering Michael's affairs, including, I now realized, with my own sister. They'd used my lowest moments against me, twisted my pain into a weapon. Why did you ask me here, Sarah? I kept my voice steady, remembering the weight of Grandmother's journal in my bag. Just to gloat. Oh no, dear sister. She leaned forward, dropping her voice. I wanted to offer you a deal. Sign away any future claims to the estate, and I'll give you a small monthly allowance, just enough to keep you from ending up on the streets. She sat back, clearly pleased with herself. After all, we'd our family. I thought about the journal, about Grandmother's final words, about the secret I discovered last night when I finally opened those weathered pages. You're right, I said, reaching for my bag. We are family. And there's something you should know about Grandmother's real estate. Sarah's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? We've been through all the paperwork. Everything's in my name now. I pulled out the journal, its leather cover worn with age. Not everything. Did you know grandmother kept a second set of books? For the first time, Sarah's confident smile faltered. What? She was quite meticulous, I continued, opening the journal. Every transaction, every property, every investment, all documented here, including some interesting transfers made just before she died. You're lying, Sarah snapped, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. The lawyers found everything. Did they? I slid a stack of papers across the table, copies I'd made from the journal's most important pages. Because according to this, grandmother's most valuable assets were moved into a separate trust 2 weeks before she passed. A trust that requires both sisters to agree on any distribution of funds. Sarah's face paled as she scanned the documents. I could almost see her mind racing, calculating what this meant. That's impossible, she whispered, but her hands were shaking now. Michael checked everything, he said. Michael doesn't know about this, I cut in. Neither do the lawyers. Grandmother made sure of that. She knew how you both operated. She was just waiting to see how far you'd go. You're bluffing, Sarah said, but her voice had lost its edge. These could be forged. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized. Why don't we ask Mr. Chen? He's the trustee grandmother appointed. I'm sure he'd be happy to verify everything. Sarah's composure cracked completely. Wait, she said quickly, reaching for my phone. Let's discuss this. I ended the call before it connected, enjoying the flash of realization in her eyes. Oh, now you want to talk? What happened to all that confidence from earlier? Emma, please, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. You don't understand. Michael and we've already spent some of the money. We've made commitments. I understand perfectly, I replied, gathering my things. You and my ex-husband conspired to steal my inheritance by painting me as mentally unstable. You used my trust against me, just like you always have. What do you want? Sarah asked, the question coming out more like a plea than a demand. I stood up, looking down at my sister, really looking at her for the first time in years. Behind the perfect makeup and designer clothes, I saw something I'd never noticed before. Fear. What I want, I said quietly, is for you to think about what's going to happen when Michael finds out there's no money left to steal. When he realizes that marrying you won't give him access to grandmother's fortune after all. The color drained from Sarah's face. You wouldn't? Wouldn't I? I smiled, remembering all the times she'd taken what was mine, all the times she'd hurt me without consequence. I think it's time for both of you to learn what it feels like to lose everything. I turned to leave, but Sarah's voice stopped me. He'll leave me, she said, her words barely audible. If he finds out about this, he'll leave me. Probably, I agreed, not turning around. Just like he left me when he thought something better came along. Funny how history repeats itself, isn't it? As I walked out of the cafe, I could feel Sarah's eyes on me, could almost hear her mind racing to find a way out of the trap she'd set for herself. But this time, there was no escape. This time, justice would finally be served. The next morning, I woke up to 37 missed calls and dozens of text messages from both Sarah and Michael. I ignored them all, instead focusing on the next phase of my plan. Grandmother's journal had revealed more than just the secret trust. It had shown me exactly how to dismantle the lies they'd built. I drove to the law offices of Chen and Associates, the leather journal secure in my bag. Mr. Chen, a small man with kind eyes and steel gray hair, was waiting for me. Miss Emma, he said, rising from behind his desk. Your grandmother spoke of you often. She would be proud to see you now. I placed the journal on his desk. Did she tell you what they might try to do? He nodded gravely. Rose was very perceptive. She knew your sister's nature, and she had concerns about your ex-husband's intentions even before your divorce. That's why she created the second trust? Precisely. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. Everything of real value, the investment portfolios, the commercial properties, the art collection, it's all here, protected. What your sister and Michael managed to steal through the courts was essentially a shell. I thought about Sarah's smug face at the cafe, about Michael's confident testimony painting me as unstable. They don't know they've been playing with an empty hand this whole time. No, Mr. Chen confirmed, a slight smile touching his lips. And now that they've shown their true colors, we can proceed with the rest of Rose's plan. My phone buzzed again. Michael this time. I silenced it without looking at the message. How long before they figure it out? The quarterly statements go out next week. Once they try to access the accounts. Mr. Chen spread his hands. Well, let's just say it will be an enlightening experience. I spent the next few days in careful preparation. While Sarah and Michael grew increasingly desperate in their attempts to contact me, I met with bankers, real estate agents, and investment advisors. Each meeting revealed another layer of grandmother's brilliance. She hadn't just protected her assets, she created a framework for exposing every lie, every manipulation Sarah and Michael had used against me. The evidence was all there, meticulously documented. On Friday afternoon, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Emma, it was Michael's mother, Margaret. Please, we need to talk. Sarah's hysterical and Michael won't tell me what's going on. I closed my eyes, remembering how Margaret had testified against me during the estate hearing, claiming she'd always known there was something wrong with that girl. I'm sorry, Margaret, I said, not feeling sorry at all. But I think it's best if they explain the situation to you themselves. I'm sure they can tell you all about how they conspired to steal my inheritance. But the money, she started. What about it? They already spent quite a bit, she said, her voice tight with worry. The new house, the cars, the engagement party next week. Emma, surely we can work something out. I thought about the engagement party they planned at the country club, the same club where Michael and I had gotten married 6 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. You know what's interesting, Margaret? When Michael and I were married, you told me family was everything. That loyalty and honesty were the foundations of a lasting relationship. I paused, letting the words sink in. I wonder what you'll say when you find out how your son and my sister betrayed those values. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. What do you mean? She finally asked. Ask them about the photos they doctored. Ask about the false testimony, the manufactured evidence they used to paint me as unstable. Better yet, ask them about the affair they were having while Michael and I were still married. I heard her sharp intake of breath. No, she whispered. They wouldn't. They did, I said simply. And now they're about to learn that actions have consequences. After hanging up, I drove to grandmother's house. My house now, though Sarah didn't know that yet. The Grand Victorian stood silent and dignified, its windows reflecting the late afternoon sun. I used my key to enter, breathing in the familiar scent of old books and furniture polish. In the study, everything was exactly as grandmother had left it. Her reading glasses still sat on the desk, next to a half-finished crossword puzzle. I ran my fingers along the spines of her beloved books, remembering all the hours we'd spent here together. I miss you, I whispered to the empty room. I wish you could see this. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mr. Chen. Quarterly statements sent. Expect contact within 24 hours. I smiled, settling into grandmother's favorite armchair. The wait wouldn't be long now. Just then, I heard a car screech to a halt outside. Footsteps pounded up the front steps, followed by the sound of someone pounding on the door. Emma, Sarah's voice, shrill with panic. Open this door right now. We need to talk. I stayed where I was, listening as Michael's voice joined hers. The accounts are empty, he was saying. Everything's gone. How could this happen? Nothing's gone. I called through the door, loud enough for them to hear. It was never there to begin with. The pounding stopped. A moment of silence, then Sarah's voice again, quieter now. What are you talking about? Maybe you should ask your fiancé about due diligence, I replied. About checking the real value of what you thought you were stealing before spending money you didn't have. Another silence, followed by the sound of hurried whispers. I could imagine them out there, their perfect world crumbling around them. Emma, please, Michael's voice now, using that gentle tone he'd always used when trying to manipulate me. Let's discuss this like adults. I'm sure we can work something out. I stood up, walking to the front door, but not opening it. Like we discussed things when you were sleeping with my sister. Or like we discussed things when you lied in court about my mental health. That was a mistake, he stammered. We never meant. To get caught? I finished for him. To face consequences? Well, too bad, because that's exactly what's about to happen. The fallout was swift and devastating. Within hours of their discovery that the accounts were empty, Sarah and Michael's carefully constructed world began to unravel. I sat in grandmother's study, watching through the window as they argued on the front lawn. Sarah was gesturing wildly, her perfect makeup streaked with tears, while Michael paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair in frustration. My phone lit up with a message from Mr. Chen. The bank is requesting an immediate meeting regarding the recent expenditures. Shall I arrange it? Yes, I replied, and make sure all relevant parties are present. The next morning, I walked into the downtown branch of First National Bank, dressed in one of grandmother's vintage Channel suits. Sarah and Michael were already there, along with their lawyer and Margaret. They all looked up when I entered, their faces a mix of anger, fear, and desperation. Now that everyone's here, the bank manager began. We need to discuss the irregular activities on these accounts. Sarah's lawyer leaned forward. My clients were granted access to these accounts through a court order. Everything was legal. The court order, I interrupted, placing grandmother's journal on the table, was obtained through fraudulent evidence that we can now prove was manipulated. The next hour was excruciating for them. Mr. Chen methodically laid out every detail, the doctored photos, the false testimonies, the carefully orchestrated character assassination they'd used to gain control of what they thought was grandmother's fortune. The real estate alone, Mr. Chen concluded, the properties they've leveraged for loans. None of it was actually in the accounts they accessed. Those assets are held in a separate trust, one that requires both sisters' consent for any transactions. Michael's face had turned an interesting shade of gray, but the money we spent was essentially credit extended by the bank based on assets you didn't actually control, the bank manager finished, which means those loans are now in default. Sarah's perfectly manicured nails dug into the conference table. This is ridiculous. Emma's just trying to hurt us because she's jealous. Michael chose me and she can't handle it. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the designer clothes and expensive jewelry, I saw what grandmother must have seen. A desperate woman so focused on taking what others have that she never built anything of her own. No, Sarah, I said quietly. This isn't about jealousy. It's about justice. About consequences. Grandmother knew what you were capable of, both of you. She planned for this. What do you mean? Margaret asked, speaking for the first time. I opened the journal to a marked page. This is grandmother's real will, her real intentions. Everything of value was placed in a trust before she died, with specific conditions. I looked directly at Sarah. She knew you'd try to take it all. She wanted to see what you'd do, how far you'd go. And now what? Michael demanded. You're going to take everything. Leave us with nothing. No, I replied. I'm going to do what grandmother would have wanted. The trust will remain intact, but with new conditions. I pulled out a document Mr. Chen had prepared. If you both sign this confession admitting to your fraud and manipulation, the trust will help pay off the debts you've incurred. Sarah's lawyer started to object, but she cut him off. And if we don't sign, then the bank proceeds with fraud charges and all the evidence of your deception goes public. Your choice. The silence in the room was deafening. Margaret was the first to speak. Sign it, she said to Michael, her voice tight with disappointment. Sign it and be grateful your grandmother's granddaughter has more mercy than either of you deserve. One by one they signed. Sarah's hand shook so badly she could barely write her name. Michael wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. When it was done, Mr. Chen collected the documents and nodded to me. There's one more thing, I said, standing. The engagement ring. Sarah's hand instinctively covered the diamond. But it belonged to grandmother. It was never yours to take. Slowly, reluctantly, she slipped it off and placed it on the table. I picked it up, feeling its familiar weight. Grandmother told me once that this ring wasn't just about value, I said, turning it in my hand. It was about legacy, about the kind of person you choose to be. She wore it for 50 years, building a life based on integrity and wisdom. You both could have learned from her example. Instead, you chose greed. I left them there. In that conference room, their worlds forever changed. The ride home was quiet, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the city. When I reached grandmother's house, my house now, I went straight to her study. Sitting in her favorite chair, I slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, just as she'd said it would. On her desk, Next to the unfinished crossword puzzle, I found an envelope I hadn't noticed before. Inside was a short note in her familiar handwriting. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then everything has played out as I expected. Remember that true wealth isn't in what you own, but in who you choose to be. You've proven yourself worthy of not just my inheritance, but of my legacy. The ring is yours now. Wear it with pride, knowing that you faced adversity with grace and emerged stronger. And perhaps someday, when the time is right, you'll pass these lessons on to someone who needs them as much as you once did. With all my love, Grandmother Rose. I sat there until the sun set, thinking about choices and consequences, about the price of greed and the value of integrity. Sarah and Michael would recover eventually. The trust would ensure they didn't end up destitute, but they would never again have the power to hurt me. Months later, I heard they'd moved to another state. Their engagement quietly ended. Margaret sent me a Christmas card, thanking me for handling things with more grace than they deserved. Sarah never reached out again, and that was fine. Some bridges, once burned, are better left as ashes. The house became my sanctuary, filled with grandmother's books and memories. I started a foundation in her name, providing education grants to young women pursuing their dreams against the odds. Every time I sign a check for a new scholarship, I think about her wisdom, her foresight, her understanding of human nature. And the ring? I wear it every day, a reminder that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in taking what others have, but in becoming someone they can never diminish. Grandmother knew that all along. She just waited patiently for me to learn it too.